morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and it is a lovely morning out here on Main Street TV. Okay, it's not really all that lovely, but it's cold, and there's still ice on the ground, but it's okay because we have our friends from 4-H here today, and Maddie is back.
I'm back.
We
yes.
have missed you.
Yeah, it's been like 2 months
Not
since
that
I've
we
been on the show.
didn't love having Josh here, but like...
I get a little boring sometimes. I got the monotone voice. And
Listen, not at all. It's just nice to have the both of you here sometimes because we can talk about all kind of different things that way. And we are going to hear, we're going to do some fun stuff today, some experiments, but we're also going to hear about Maddie's trip that you went to Puerto Rico.
I did, yeah.
Did you or did you not get the mofongo?
I did, yeah.
Is it
was
so good?
So good, yes.
Okay,
yes,
good.
yeah,
Good deal.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll hear all about that here in just a little bit as well. So we're going to talk about, Josh was saying something about pesticides.
Yep.
And how it affects, the environment. So we're going to play some experiments. We're going to do all kind of fun stuff today with our friends of 4-H. So we'll be back in just a moment.
Would you like to work closer to home, save money on gas, and be rewarded for your hard work and attendance? Then Bellisio Foods is looking for you. That's right, Bellisio Foods is now hiring for multiple positions and shifts with great employee benefits, an on-site health clinic, competitive wages, and advancement opportunities. Bellisio Foods is a company that truly values their employees. Apply online at belisiofoods.com/careers.
All right, and we're back with our friends from 4-H and Extension, and we are going to do some fun stuff today because we always have fun when you two show up.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about what is going on with, I see vegetable oil, I see water, I see all kind of things.
Yeah, so
I'm terrified. I'm always scared when he comes in with stuff.
This time of year is my busy time with pesticides. So actually, I got to go to Ross County to this afternoon actually teach some pesticides. But whenever I go to the different types of schools, I'm trying to figure out what can I do to kind of make it more simple. Because kids, when you talk about pesticides, they're like, well, I don't know what that is. I don't want to talk about it. But
well, why should they know?
Exactly. Yeah, they shouldn't be using them, first off. But it's a very crucial thing that we use in agriculture. So pesticides can help us get rid of all the pests, can get us rid of the weeds that can impact our yields. So it's kind of an essential thing for a lot of our farmers. Now, you don't have to use pesticides. There's other ways to manage it.
Yes.
But pesticides, they typically are the easiest whenever you're trying to get rid of your pest. So our farmers, they have these pesticide license, and they can hold them for 3 years, and then they have to get recertified to make sure that they're going to be able to use them safely, to understand any type of updates, because just like everything else, things change within the years. So after 1 year, things change. After 2 years, things change. After 3 years, stuff's going to be changing. So they get a little bit of update about reminding them to be safe and also get to see the different types of pesticides that are out and about.
Okay.
So when I go to the schools and talk about this, I kind of base it back on the scientific method. So I go to the school and I'd be like, all right, so what's the scientific method? Well, you have to have a question. Once you have that question, you make a hypothesis. Once you have that hypothesis, you can start collecting your data, doing your experiment, then analyzing your data, and then coming to a conclusion of what you think. So I do a simple one at first. So I say, we have this green food dye, and we have a cup of water. What do you guys think would happen if I put the green food dye in the water? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, the water will just turn green, right?
I don't know. Is that what you think?
That's what I think.
Is that your hypothesis?
That's my hypothesis.
That's your hypothesis.
Can I say hypotheses?
You can if you would like to.
Okay.
So you take it, show them, put it in there. They see that the water starts to change. Let me put a little bit more.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be funny because our
is it gonna turn into
brick?
Yeah. So for the viewers back home, this water is green, but it's actually turning into a brick.
No way.
Kind of crazy because of the green screen.
So
your hypothesis was wrong. It didn't turn green. It turned to brick. When you put food coloring in water, it turns to brick. It does not turn green.
You know, earlier when we walked in, we saw the new lovely green screen that they have here, and I said, I work for 4-H. I have to wear green
This is
all
not
the time.
going to work for me.
That's like all that's in my wardrobe is green. So what am I gonna do? So we're gonna have to test it next time. I'm gonna wear
We
green,
will.
and we'll see if I turn to bricks.
Okay.
That's so funny.
All right. So we tell the kids tell the kids, yeah, because most of them know that food coloring is going to turn green whenever it goes in the water. So they get their hypothesis right. So the next thing I do is, okay, now we put the food coloring in there. Now we're going to put vegetable oil in there. What do you guys think is going to happen? So what do you think is going to happen if we put a cup of vegetable oil in there?
In the green,
No,
in the brick water?
In the other water, not the brick water.
Brick
Can't put it on
water.
bricks.
In the brick water. I think that the oil will set on top of the water.
Maddie, what do you think?
I think it's gonna turn into little bubbles.
Turn into little bubbles. So they make their hypothesis. So we made our hypothesis. Now we got to do the experiment. So now we got to test it. So we dump it on in there. See if the camera can see it. And you can kind of see on the camera, it turned to bubbles. And now it's set into the top. So
we're both right.
you're both right. So it turned into bubbles and it
Heck
floated
yeah.
on top because it's a lot more, or the density is different between the water and the oil. Still can't see your hand. That's crazy.
That's so fun.
So we talk about the scientific method, and we just explain that to them for a little bit because, we kind of want to relate it back to what they're learning about in school.
Well, why does oil sit on top of water?
The density is different. So one's more dense, so one sinks, one goes higher.
Isn't that is that viscosity?
Viscosity is how
It goes through the oil, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. I think one of my friends did when we used to have to do the science fair at school, I think she tested motor oil and did the viscosity of different motor oils. That's why I learned that word way back when.
Interesting.
Can't tell you anything about it other than I remember I learned that word and I thought it was cool.
When I was up at Ohio State, I took ag business, so like business but with ag, and we were talking to different Columbus kids that weren't really familiar with what agriculture was, and we were able to convince him that I had to take ag physics, and we were doing the viscosity of corn, testing the viscosity of corn, and he thought it was the best thing ever, and he wanted to do it, and then we had to tell him we didn't do that.
It's not real. That's
not real. But anyways, so back to our experiment. So once we get it, the different colors, I explained to them, well, we have 2 different types of pesticides. So I bring it back, explain what pesticides are, why farmers use them, explain one's going to be a water-based, which is going to be your food coloring. The other is going to be an oil-based. So what would happen if we were to have a spill? Well, if we spill our water space is just going to be a diluted version of that pesticide, herbicide, whatever you're going to use. So yes, it's got some concentration in it and it can cause some damage, but it's not going to cause as much damage as our oil base. Because let's say we have our oil-based pesticide. Our oil-based pesticide is going to be in there and it's going to be agitated or mixed up. But once it sits for a while, it's going to separate. So when the oil base separates, you're going to have a high concentration in a little bit of an area. So it can cause more damage to an area just because it's going to sit there and it's going to be more concentrated in that area.
Okay.
So a lot of the kids, that's kind of hard to comprehend on a middle school, high school level. So I break it down to them and show them what they've seen on the news. So talking about the oil spills that happen like in the Gulf of Mexico.
Sure, like in the ocean that you see.
It's essentially the same thing. We have the water, but we have that oil that breaks off and the oil goes and it disturbs different types of habitats. So I go ahead and I do this experiment with them. So we take a bowl that we have over there and all I do is I'm going to take what I mixed up, pour it in there. Now we have a bowl, which you can't really see it yet, but a bowl that's filled with water and oil. So I give them different types of tools now because we want to make it fun. Their job is to be the oil cleanup crew. So I give them packing peanuts. So there's your packing peanuts. I give them a spoon. They have a spoon. And they had a straw. So now they had to take these instruments and try and get the oil and the water to separate out of the bowl. Here is a cup. Whenever you try to pull it out, put it in the cup. We've got some napkins here because when I did it with middle schoolers, we had to spend like 15, 20 minutes cleaning up. It was a mess.
Yeah.
But we got some napkins here, so you can make it as messy as you want or as clean as you want. But try and get the oil separated from the water.
Okay.
So, like I said, this could either be talking about an oil spill that's in the ocean or a pesticide spill, whether that's a tank busted open while they're going to field, just being oil-based pesticide.
Okay, and if you can't really see this, but what Maddie and I both said is happening. So the oil is bubbles, but it almost looks like a little round sheet on top of the water.
Right.
So it's very thin and round in the water. So I have got to get that oil out of this water.
Right. And then once you get it out, you can put it in that cup. Maddie, you can help her too.
Can I
your
Google
challenge
it?
for the day.
Well, I'm wondering about the packing peanuts. Do they suck it up?
Try
I don't
it.
know. Scientific method. What do you think? What do you think's happening?
What's your hypothesis?
I think that is sticking. Yeah, it is sticking to it, actually,
So she's putting the packing peanuts in the oil,
which I would have never guessed in a million years.
and the oil's attaching to the packing peanuts. We're taking the spoon, moving the spoon around.
I'm trying to twirl it so I can use all of the peanut. It's definitely soaking it up.
Yeah, it's definitely working. A little bit, at least.
So they're trying one method. They're using the packing peanuts to try and soak it up.
Okay, so then I'm going to take this packing peanut out and put it in here.
Yep. All right, you
I
got
mean,
a little bit out.
We got quite a bit.
There's a little bit of oil in there.
All right.
So
I'm
doing
going
the
to
other
do
one.
that. I'm going to put another peanut in there.
And the fun part of this assignment is just being able to watch the students do it, just seeing the different types of ways that they're going to be able to solve a problem, because there's a lot of different problems. I seen a lot of kids, the first thing they did was pick up the whole bowl and dump it in their cup, and they said, "It's clean." I said, "You're out of water. You have no water now." And in fact, it was not clean. There was still oil all around the base of the
I think I
bowl.
did this backwards of how I should do it.
What do you think you should have done?
I think I should have taken the spoon and skimmed the oil off the top first and then stuck the packing peanuts in to suck the rest out.
Okay. Do you think it's too far to change anything?
I don't know. Let me see.
Because what's going to happen with the oil? What's the oil going to naturally do?
Sit on the top.
Yep, it's going to sit on the top. So
Yeah, I think I should have done that method, but I mean, I can still get. And it's funny when you put it in the spoon, there's water in the spoon and the oil's sitting on top of the water in the spoon. So
So we're getting it out, doing a pretty good job. There's quite a bit of oil in that one. So when I dumped it, a lot of the oil came out. That's the funny part. I kept going around putting a little more oil in everyone's bowls once they started getting a little out.
yeah, I think I did that backwards. I don't know. What do you think?
Have you used a straw yet? How would you use
No.
a straw?
I have no frickin' idea.
I don't want to get it in my mouth.
I had to keep repeating the kids, "Don't drink it."
That could work.
No,
A singular drop came out.
I don't know what to do. I stirred it all up. I want to see if it would separate again.
So what's the secret, Josh?
So the secret is we also have this device. So it's really super hard to see. But it's
A pipette.
pipette. So when you put it in, you squeeze the top and it'll suck it up. So see if you can do anything with that.
Oh. Well, I've got it all mixed up now.
Yep. So we're still using it and we're getting a little bit of it, but we're also losing the water too.
Yep. I think I should have done it backwards. Should I have done it backwards?
So the answer to this is there's no perfect way to do it. Because at the end of the day, we're showing the kids how hard it is to clean up once you have a spill. So once you've spilled this oil-based pesticide,
I'm
it's
kind of just making a mess of it now.
it's almost impossible to get every single, actually, I think it is impossible to get every single piece of that pesticide out.
And this is just like literally a tiny bowl of stuff. Think about an entire ocean or area that's got this all over it.
Think about a 100-gallon tank just busting.
Yeah.
busted all over the road, goes down in the ditch, it's running near a stream. At that point, what they tell you is just try and contain it, control it, and call ODA. And then they're also going to call emergency people to come out, and they're going to try and stop the damage as much as they can, because once this happens, there's no turning back. Once I put that oil in that water, there's essentially no turning back. Say we can try to mitigate its damage, but we're just trying to keep it from damaging our water, our soil, and our wildlife, our aquaculture, wherever the spill may happen. So once we do this, we go ahead and we dump all the water into the cup, and I show them even at the end of it, there's still oil. It's still super shiny at the bottom of your bowl. So the key thing of when we're talking about pesticides for our for certification and my farmers, I always talk about doing the little things right, because doing the little things right will protect you from having a spill, whether that's a crack in your tank, whether
oily.
that's driving too fast, whether that's going and wrecking, trying to avoid a spill as much as possible.
We don't have to moisturize today.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
It's good weather for this experiment.
So by the time we get that done, we go ahead and we just debrief, explain a little bit about, why they use Dawn dish soap for our animals or our
Sure.
our
And,
aquaculture.
I mean, that's really a thing. It's not just a commercial to sell
Yeah.
Dawn dish soap.
You see
Right.
the little duck, with all the
Yes.
oil on him, and
And it saves their lives. Like
Yeah.
it's and it's just the same as your home.
Right.
You wash your greasy things with Dawn and
yeah.
Okay, so and maybe you're gonna get to this, but why would one use a water-based pesticide over an oil-based pesticide?
It all depends on what you're spraying. It's just such a it depends question, because there's some weeds that the oil base is going to do a much better job than the water base, but it all
Because
just
it would stick more,
right.
or is that
go-
what the?
It's going to be able to stick more.
Okay.
The residue is going to last maybe a little longer than your water based. It just all depends on the situation.
Think about like your different types of plants, like maybe house plants. Like some have a waxy substance on them,
Yeah.
some don't, right?
Okay.
So what's gonna kind of penetrate a little bit easier?
Well, okay, so let's talk about maybe not a farmer for a moment, and just Jen out in my small landscape bed with whatever I buy at the big box store, Callahan Hardware or something. Is that water-based or oil-based? How do I know?
The labels.
And does it matter?
The label is the law. You'll always read the label, but most of the time, if it's just going to be those regular ones that anyone can buy,
Like
it's most likely going to be
Roundup or something.
water-based, something that you can't do a lot of damage. You can still do quite a bit of damage with it if you use it carelessly, but it's going to be more of a water-based, going to be something that's going to be less potent, something that your everyday person's going to use, because
They're protecting us from ourselves.
right. So there's two different categories of pesticides. There's restricted use, which you have to have a license for. You have to have that training. You have to have all the training for it. And then there's just the over-the-counter stuff you can buy at Tractor Supply,
Right.
Walmart, whichever one you use.
Okay.
So we explain that through the scientific method.
So
and
they
then-
don't let us dum-dums buy the really, really good stuff.
Right. You got to have
Or
certain-
bad stuff,
You got to
depending
have
on what you think.
you got to have a good amount of training just because of how much damage you can do.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that, actually.
So
Well,
So, yeah,
very cool.
that's-
But there's no cleaning that up. Like, I just stuck my finger in it to see. I thought I had gotten most of the oil out, and it's just an oily mess.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Even when they dump it out, they just have a big oil spit, like just shiny on the bottom. And explain to them, like, what if this was a pond? What if this was a pond that the farmer's watering their cattle out of? Well, now you can't use the pond. Now you got to have
Right.
a whole cleanup method, drain the pond, probably get rid of all the soil underneath of it. I'm not exactly sure how they would clean it up at that point.
Sure.
So it's going through the consequences of a careless mistake or not going through, like doing the little things right, like I said earlier.
So what if, God forbid, you are a farmer or somebody that has some livestock and something like this happens, who's your first call?
Yeah, the first thing to do is to try and contain it as best as you can. Second's to call, if it's a very, very dangerous chemical, to call local authorities, call ODA, and try to stop it from moving as much as possible, because ODA is going to send someone out right away.
And
The
ODA is
the Ohio Department of Agriculture.
Okay, there
So in Ohio, ODA, they are the ones who's going to monitor everything pesticide. We just
Okay.
do the training, the recertification, the education part. They're the ones who actually administer the license, have people test for the license, and then they go out and they do any type of pesticide complaint. So if anybody would ever have a pesticide complaint, they would call ODA, and ODA would send their inspector out to see if there was any type of pesticide damage on any certain area.
Okay. And, here's the thing. Stuff rolls downhill. I think we've all learned that
Yep.
phrase over the years. But, so, when it rolls downhill, it typically ends up in a water source or something of that nature. So even if it's not you, it could be your neighbor contaminating your stuff.
Right.
Which
And-
is terrifying.
And a lot of the complaints that ODA gets, it's not really spills. Spills are just the most impactful just
Sure.
because they're super hard to control. A lot of it's drift. So what drift is when someone goes out and they spray, and it's too windy that day. So they spray it really close to, whatever they're spraying, but then a gust of wind picks it up. That water molecules fly over to your neighbors, hits their vegetable garden, hits their trees, hit their, anything. It can damage anything. So that's the biggest concern whenever we're talking about pesticides is drift coming in and picking
Okay.
it up and carrying it.
That makes sense. And, God knows we have had enough wind around here lately.
Yeah.
Yeah. And up in northwestern Ohio, it's not any better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A little more
They-
flat up there, too.
Yeah.
They showed us videos of people spreading lime out. Luckily it wasn't any type of pesticide, but it was just flying miles and miles of just a dust
Really?
cloud.
Oh,
People
my.
thought it was a fire. They called the fire department on them, and it was actually someone just spreading lime.
Wow.
And the wind just picked it up. And
Yep.
those are all things that you can't control. And
Right.
we as humans try our best, we hope. But at the end of the day, some things are out of your control.
Right. And if it's pesticides, even if it's out of your control, if it's above that wind or that wind threshold, that you can't spray. That's just what it is. That's what they'll tell you. And if you cause any damage and you say, well, I had to, this was the least windy day, you still sprayed, you still caused damage, they're still going to get you.
Tough tootie.
Right. Right.
I think that's official language for the ODA.
Yeah.
Tough tootie.
Probably.
But yeah, it's I just think that activities like this are super important because Josh mostly works with adults, right? Like
Sure.
and farmers and working with those individuals who do this professionally, right? Who,
Yes.
do this for a living. And so it's important that when Josh does get to go into the schools, he's teaching that important ag education because we talk about how far removed people these days are from farms, right, and agriculture.
Well,
they don't
yeah,
know where
'cause
their food
steaks
comes
come from
from.
Walmart.
Yeah, they don't know where their food comes
Right.
from. A lot of people don't understand why we apply pesticides, why that's a necessary thing to do. And so just kind of giving people the tools that they need to be able to understand those processes, even at a young age, so they can go about life just kind of being cognizant of those things and why there are algal blooms in Lake Erie and why there are oil spills and, things of that nature. So, and then just how to be able to respond to situations if they occur. So,
Right.
Absolutely. And then if you want to learn, how to garden or whatever without pesticides, that's an entire different
Yep.
thing. I have a good friend that has a certified organic farm, and it blows my mind that she grows all of these products and flowers and all of
Yeah.
this stuff with nothing.
it's very
And
difficult. Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's a complete science all on its own.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's also another danger of like someone else using pesticides and using it carelessly because if someone
Yes.
has that drift and it goes on an organic farm, they're no longer organic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to be a big fine, probably going to be a big lawsuit that might happen because
And that's their
organic
livelihood,
farms not
right?
easy to
Sure.
get established.
No, and that's the whole thing. I don't think people understand. I mean, it's a whole thing to get an organic farm certified and all of that stuff. So, but what farmers do, in our area, and before you want to start running your mouth about pesticides and stuff, I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Get over it. Wash your stuff before you eat it. I don't know what to tell you, but like, unless you want to spend, 17 times more for stuff,
Yeah.
it is what it is. And that's a whole other, show we could have or debate or whatever. But understand that it is a way of life.
Right. And it's just like anything else. It's safe as long as you use it right and you do the right steps.
Yep.
It's just like starting a fire in your house, like a house. If you put it in the fireplace, it's going to be great. If If you put it in the kitchen, probably not going to be so great.
No, not so much.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome.
So.
Yeah.
Well, very
Any other
good.
questions we can answer about pesticide usage or our activities?
No, I think that's good. That's awesome. And no, it's really good awareness.
Right.
Because I'm sitting here looking at this bowl and it's grossing me out.
Yeah, it just sits there.
And you can
Because-
see your packing peanuts have kind of dissolved. Do you see that?
Yes, they have literally like, bleh.
Put that up there.
They've turned to mush.
Yeah.
Which is scary all in its own right. Anyway. All right. Well, let's change gears for a minute. I think we do have another message, and then we'll come back, and we want to hear about your experiences in Puerto Rico. If that works.
Happy to share, of course.
Of course. We'll be right back.
At Vinton County National Bank, we believe in supporting the areas where we live and work. Now, we'd like to honor those who also serve our communities. Our new Community Champions account is especially for first responders, veterans, active military, and anyone employed in the fields of healthcare or education. This account offers rewards, discounts, and other benefits to those who give so much to others. Vinton County National Bank, rewarding those who serve.
With 12 other colleagues of mine to Puerto Rico. And I got to do a cultural immersion program down there where we got to
4-H in Puerto Rico.
We got to engage with a lot of their local extension professionals and 4-H groups and stuff like that. So in Puerto Rico, here in Jackson County, we have what we would call or describe more as a traditional 4-H model. So we have traditional 4-H clubs that kids join. They meet kind of outside of regular, hours, right? On weekends or weeknights, right? Evenings. And so they join a club and they pick a project and they go about their 4-H way that way, right? In Puerto Rico, their 4-H program is mostly ran through the school systems.
Really?
Yeah, and so I think I sent a picture of me kind of pointing at a 4-H clover. And yeah, those are a group of students that we got to work with while we were down there in one of the schools. And so a lot of their 4-H programs are very much school-based. And so I got to find a 4-H clover in the schools. It was the coolest thing. Just some marketing materials that they have just hanging up in the classrooms to encourage kids to join 4-H and stuff like that.
Love that.
Yeah, it was super fun. We got to kind of explore the culture. That's a photo of me at...
Don't move your head. I can't see anything.
That's a photo of me. That's in Old San Juan.
Yes.
At the fort that they have down there. It's one of the national parks. So that was super great just to be able to explore the culture. We got to learn about Bamba and Plena, which is their kind of two cultural kind of connections down there. It's dance and music and art, and it was super fun.
And how to walk on cobblestones.
Yes.
And not fall down and break your neck.
So while we were down there, we actually stayed in a town called Castañer. Castañer is kind of in central western Brazil. I studied abroad in Brazil in college.
Okay.
We can talk about that later. But in Puerto Rico, it's up in the mountains. So it's about 3-ish hours from San Juan. And so Castañer is a very rural, small community. So we stayed at a church in Castañer and just engaged with the people there and learned all about their culture. So that mural back there in the background of that picture actually details Hurricane Maria.
Okay.
When that hit in 2017, I think it was. And so the town is so cut off, so rural that all of their supplies had to be airlifted into them by helicopters. And so just like listening to the people and how they got together and worked together during that hard time and kind of kept each other alive and kept the community going. It was just really inspiring. So
that's
really I don't know what other pictures I sent you, Dylan. Oh, coffee beans. So we got to go to a coffee farm. This was like the highlight.
Cool.
Yeah, this is like the highlight of my trip. So those are coffee beans right there in that basket. Yes, they look like little cranberries or something. And you can actually eat them like that. Like the outside is very sweet, and then the bean is on the inside, and you just like don't chew up the bean. So you
eat the sweet part off the outside.
Yeah, like it's kind of a squishy, sweet, and then you take the beans out and then you roast them, and then that's how you get your coffee.
Okay.
So there's a green building I think I sent you guys. So this is the coffee farm. You can see the baskets hanging there.
Okay, this is cool.
And we got to meet a man named Pedro, and Pedro was in 4-H when he was a kid. They call it Cuatro H down there. So he was in 4-H, and he told us this incredible story about how he just, loved 4-H so much. It taught him leadership and life skills and business management, and now he runs his own coffee farm. And so he talked about how he got to go to Chicago to National 4-H Conference when he was 15 or 16 years old. And
wow.
So he took us around his farm, and we got to pick coffee and roast the coffee and take some home. And it was just a super awesome experience. I really, really enjoyed. And his coffee farm, his roastery there is 4-H green because he loves 4-H so much. And all throughout there, in that building there, you just kind of take a look around, and there are 4-H clovers hidden everywhere because they go down and they visit Pedro every year. So this year they took 4-H professionals, adults. Next year they'll take youth down to 4-H or down to Puerto Rico. So usually every year we bring him some sort of 4-H kind of thing, and he'll hang them up in his roastery there. And it was just such a fun experience, and I learned so much just about how privileged we are up here in the the United States and everything, and just how much they struggle down there. There were times that we ran out of water at the place we were staying.
Puerto Rico is the United States.
Yes,
just to remind you all, not that you would know that.
Yeah, it is a U.S. territory.
Yes.
And it's just insane to think about how the United States does have influence down there, and they still struggle so much. And
very much.
There were times that the power would surge and we would lose power, and there were times that we ran out of water. And it was insane.
Like stuff that we take for granted every day.
And then we went to Old San Juan, which is where all the cruise ships pull in and everything, and it's so modern.
Yes.
And then, you travel 3 hours inland to Castañer, and they just have nothing, right? So it was really, really, really an interesting experience. We got to, one final thing, we got to stay with kind of like our host family that kind of coordinates our trip down there each year. And their names are Joe and Joyce. And Joe and
Say that
Joyce,
5
I know,
times
right? Joe and Joyce were the sweetest couple. And we got to go down there and we painted their house and kind of helped them clean up because they're getting older in age and are having a hard time kind of keeping up with things. And just the way that they welcomed us into their home, they prepared us a traditional Puerto Rican meal. And she laid out this long table where we got to sit and eat as a family together. Aww. And her joy of just sharing that with us was incredible. So it was an awesome experience. I learned so much about how to share that with our youth here in Jackson County. Jackson County youth can go to Puerto Rico if they want to. They can apply for that trip. They'll be going in kind of December, the same time next year. So
strongly urge,
yes,
that and travel when you're young, because it really does help you understand what makes the world go round or not go round, or empathy, I think, a lot of times too, for seeing things that we are very spoiled.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah,
very,
absolutely.
Very
so it was just a really fun trip that got me thinking about ways that we can open, some of our young people's eyes here in our community. And so I'm hoping to do, I know I've seen some other county programs around the state do exchange programs just within their counties.
that would
and
be
so
fun.
We have some plans to exchange, with some northern counties and go up and tour their fairgrounds and see the way that they do things and tour their cities up there. And then they come down maybe the next summer and hang out with us down here. And so just figuring out ways that we can engage with people that maybe we wouldn't engage with normally, and just kind of see the way that they live and the way that our communities are even different across our state. Right?
Sure.
So, yeah.
And God knows across the United States.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You may as well be in 50 different countries.
Yeah.
It's very unique.
Yeah.
So, okay, I do have a question, though, back to the coffee thing. So the process of, so you had just picked those beans, and they're in a basket, and then kind of in a nutshell, or a coffee bean shell, what is the process? How long does the process take to where it becomes coffee? Did you go through all of that?
Yeah, so Pedro kind of walked us through, we asked you, because it was a big basket, right? How long does it take to fill up the basket? Because we were picking, I don't know, not very long, maybe 45 minutes. And that was how much I filled up my little basket, right? And I was going hard. I was like, I want to fill up my basket.
And you weren't getting anywhere. No offense. You didn't get very far.
No, I didn't. I didn't get very far. The beans grow on these kind of like tall bushes. They're not quite trees, but they're not quite bushes either. I don't know how to describe. And they're just everywhere, and you have to find.
Are they prickly or
no,
are they?
No.
It's not hard. Okay.
You do have to watch for ants though, because the ants like the sweetness.
Well,
so when they fall off,
I can't blame them.
You'll step in some ants and then they'll bite you, and it doesn't feel very good. But they say that it takes like 16 hours for a worker to fill up a basket, right? So then they take it in and you run it through a machine that kind of peels the skins away from the beans, right?
Okay.
So the hard bean is inside that cranberry looking kind of berry there. And so you don't really do anything with that skin, that soft. You can eat it, but it's not like worth it, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you take the beans out, they have to dry, right? You have to put it through a roaster, you roast them. And I mean, it can take anywhere from, depending on the type of technology that you have, right? 24 hours to, if you dry them naturally, like however long it takes for naturally to get the moisture out, right?
Sure.
So it just kind of depends. And so Pedro's operation down there isn't like the most high tech. He does have a really nice roaster down there that he was able to kind of run everything through. But yeah, I mean, it can take, I guess, as long as it needs to kind of make sure all that moisture is out of there.
And again, coffee is not does not come in a Folgers can.
No.
Like,
you had to,
think about that,
hand
though.
crank that grinder and grind up those beans. So I got ground and I got whole beans, and I brought them home with me, which is super cool. And you can actually order Pedro's coffee online and have it shipped.
Stop.
Yeah, you can.
What's it called?
I'll have to find it. I'll find it for you and I'll send it to you. But yeah, it was just super cool. It's a local coffee roastery down there in Castanier. And it was just really cool to see that process because I had no idea that coffee looked like a little cranberry. And
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's fun.
It was very neat. It was the highlight of my trip for sure was going to that coffee farm. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a good time.
Very, very
And
cool.
Josh got drywall done while I was gone.
I did drywall.
Thanks, Josh. We appreciate that.
It was 90 degrees down there. It was 15 degrees here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
he and I'm sure your ears were burning because I think the last time you were here, the weather was like, we were like, oh, that's great. She's in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
It's fine.
We said it probably 6 times.
All
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yep. The funniest part, so I brought a pair, to the airport in Columbus, I wore like a pair of leggings and a sweatshirt, right? And then on our way back, I packed that leggings and sweatshirts in my carry-on to change before I got to Columbus, right? And we flew into New York City, and then we flew to Columbus from there.
Okay.
And my carry-on got checked. And so I didn't have my leggings and my sweatshirt. So I was walking around at New York City in the airport there in like biker shorts and a t-shirt. And I was like, and everybody else was wearing like parkas and like, I was like, I look like an idiot. And then we get into Columbus, and I finally get my bag back, and I was like, you know what? It's not even worth it now.
Right.
Like,
it's an hour home.
yeah,
like hour and a half home.
and so I just got in the car with my biker shorts and my t-shirt, and I did. It was so funny. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
That is the worst. I mean, I don't know. If anything can go wrong with flying, it will.
Yep.
It just does.
But we had a really smooth trip. It was honestly super great. And as I receive more information about cultural immersion trips that Ohio 4-H is offering, I definitely want to pass those along to my 4-H youth here.
Yeah, that would be great.
When I was in college, I worked at the state 4-H office. I don't know if many people know that. And while I was there, it was like prior to COVID, when it was in like 2018, 2019, I worked with the 4-H International program, and I got to coordinate international exchanges as part of my work there. And so I got to work.
Do that through 4-H.
Yes, I got
That's
to
so
work
cool.
with States 4-H International is kind of the group that helps organize those, and I got to coordinate a Japanese youth exchange, and we brought 75 Japanese youth and advisors over to Ohio, and we placed them with host families, and they got to spend their summer here in Ohio. And their culminating experience was a day at the state fair. And they got to present.
Cool.
They had a booth at the state fair, and they got to talk to people as they walked by and make origami with them and play Japanese games with them. And it was just so fun. And we taught them to sing Happy Birthday in English. And it was just such a fun experience. And so I guess moral of the story, over all of it is interact, with people different than
Absolutely.
yourself and get to know those cultures. Because you'll never know what you'll learn, and it's super awesome.
And at the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't matter where you're from or whatever. And it's just, like I said, I think empathy is such a good tool to learn, good thing to learn.
Yeah.
So tell us about Brazil. That sounds fun.
I did study.
I did not know you did that.
I did in college. It was also like right before COVID. Actually, it was like as COVID was hitting, we were leaving Brazil and coming home. And I remember passing through the airports and seeing on the screens, like, cover your cough. 3 cases have ran through this airport. And then we'd go back through the airport a different time, and it would be like 18 cases. And it just kept like, because we flew all around Brazil while I was down there. I was down there for 6.5 weeks. And I studied at the University of Sao Paulo, a branch campus called Azalki, that focuses on agriculture and natural resources.
Cool.
So like the way I equate it is like at Ohio State here in Ohio, we have Ohio State University, and then we have the Agricultural Technical Institute, ATI, up in Worcester.
Right.
And so it's kind of the same thing. It was kind of like a branch campus focused on ag.
Specialized on
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So they had a farm. We got to interact. They did a dairy study, and we got to interact with their little baby dairy cows. It was so cute.
Oh, I'm just going to tell you, there is nothing cuter than a dairy cow, little dairy cow. Their big old eyes. And
Yeah, so we were in Piracicaba for about, 4 weeks-ish. And then the last 2.5 weeks we spent just kind of making our way from southern Brazil to the Amazon rainforest.
Okay.
And about the last, 3 or 4 days of our trip, we were actually staying in the Amazon rainforest on the Uruguay River, and we got to swim in the Amazon and catch piranhas and eat them, and just such a cool experience.
I know. You lost me at piranhas.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but no, don't they bite you?
No. So something I learned while I was in Brazil is there are like, I don't even know how many, like countless breeds or different kinds of piranhas. And there's only like 2 piranhas that actually like will bite a human or that are like aggressive like that. The rest of them, we could see them out in the river kind of swarming, but they might just be attacking another fish or like something that maybe like,
But do they have
small.
the icky teeth?
They do, but they were just little. Like
they were just little.
We've got fish here in Ohio that are kind of similar that have little teeth, right?
Okay.
Like, so we got to catch some. I'll send it to you. I have a picture of me somewhere with all these piranhas on a stick that I had caught, and we were gonna roast them on a fire. But it was just again like it was such a fun experience, and we got to go from. I stayed with a host family, and I still talk to my host family to this day. They were super great, and they lived, in a beautiful community. That was kind of gated and sectioned off. And they were very, this community was very well off. And then we kind of got to travel in closer to Sao Paulo where there's what they call favelas, which are kind of the slums and where people who just don't have a lot live. And so we got to kind of see those
All
cultural
walks of life.
differences,
Yeah.
right? And we got to learn all about the culture down there while we were studying. I just got to see so many cool things, and it was a really great experience. But yeah.
How was the? I was wondering about the language barrier. How did that go?
So a funny story that I like to tell. I got my nose pierced in Brazil.
Okay.
While I was down there, and couldn't speak a lick of Portuguese. They speak Portuguese down there in Brazil.
Okay.
And so what we did is we had a couple of other college students that kind of stayed with us, and they spoke English and Portuguese. And so I told I have a lot of ear piercings. I don't know if you noticed, but she said, "I love your ear piercings. I want to get my ears pierced so bad, but I'm scared." And I said, "I want to get my nose pierced really bad, but I can't speak Portuguese." And she said, "I'll go with you if you'll hold my hand." And so we went.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it really wasn't a problem. I did Duolingo for like months and months before I went, and I could ask the basic questions. But a lot of people, they teach English from a very young age in the schools down there, and so that's, I think, the biggest barrier that a lot of people have to traveling and experience new countries is the language barriers. And as long as you're trying, a lot of people will help you out and respect that. I remember ordering at Subway. One time there was a Subway down there, and it's all the same, right? They have lettuce and tomatoes and chicken, and
Right.
and we were like trying to Google Translate and they were like, "That's not right. That's not the word for lettuce." Like
They're like, "You are so much."
Yeah.
Just point.
Yeah. So it was super great. And yeah, if 4-Hers or families have questions about traveling through 4-H and experiencing those things,
What a cool,
happy to answer them.
Yeah, what a cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Well, guys, see, Pete Wilson just walked in, so we will get to the news in just a moment, but we want to thank you.
Yeah,
it's
of
always so
course.
much fun when you two
Yeah,
come
absolutely.
here on the show, and And even if it's just Josh, we have fun too.
Yeah. Can we quickly plug just a couple of things that we sent? We'll be super, super quick. I know I took up a lot of time.
No, you're fine.
I'll let Josh plug his events. First thing I want to plug is the Canner's Cave 75th anniversary banquet that's coming up not this weekend, but next on January 25th. 75 years, that's a super huge deal. That's my enrollment flyer. You can... But Canner's Cave is turning 75. They're having a big banquet with an incredible meal. They're having like bacon wrapped chicken and all kinds of good stuff. No, it should say 75 on it. That's my club list. If you can screenshot that, friends, if you want to join a 4-H club, and contact any one of those people, and they'll get you signed up for 4-H. Enrollment deadline is April 1st.
There you go.
But yeah, you can tickets are $40, or you can buy a 10-person table for $350 for the Canner's Cave banquet. Come out and celebrate with us. We'd love to have you there. There's going to be live and silent auctions and raffles and just all kinds of really great stuff. So you won't want to miss it. But
Yeah, and I just have the Jackson County Farmers Club next Monday. We're actually going to be able to tour the Jackson FFA shop, so that's going to be a fun, interactive with, some of our farmers in our community, plus our young farmers, hopefully for the future. We've got a berry management workshop. It's going to be coming up here in February, and then plus pesticide recertification. And then there's Maddie's picture of the 75th.
They're doing a gun raffle as well, so if you're interested in... buying tickets for that firearm, you have to come to the banquet. So come to the banquet. There's the information there that you can screenshot to RSVP.
Very, very cool. And if all else fails and you don't know where to find that stuff, you can find it online.
Yep.
At
jackson.osu.edu.
There you go. I'll let you say it because I will mess it up. So. All right. Well, you two, thank you so much for stopping by. It's always so fun, and we can't wait till next month.
Absolutely.
To see what adventures we'll get into. It's always something.
Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate y'all.
All right. So let's hear from one of our friends, and then we'll be back with Pete Wilson and some news. All right, and let's go over our local weather forecast as, unfortunately, a little bit of snow sneaking in is what I'm trying to say. Thank you, too. So look for, they're saying perhaps an inch of snow overnight. I don't know whether we will or not. Look out the window and see, I suppose. But cold temperatures overnight tonight, lows of 4 degrees. Tomorrow on Wednesday, highs of 25, lows of 10. And then look at that though, at least on Friday, Saturday, we do get a chance of some rain and some warmer temperatures, hopefully to wash all of that snow away that we've had over, the past week or so.
Instead of stomping through we need the boots to
and
stomp
ice.
through the water, right?
Sorry, Pete. Can you move to that seat?
Oh. We're moving Pete around. Okay.
All right.
All right.
There we
but
are.
yes, no, you were exactly right. Over the ice and the snow and everything else. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we will get right to the news because we have really a lot going on in the community in different ways.
Yes.
So we'll hit what we can here. But a murder trial started yesterday in Jackson County Common Pleas Court.
Can you believe it already?
Right. And I was there to cover part of that yesterday. And how it works on these trials, they're part of the day is absorbed by jury selection because you have all these potential jurors come up and each attorney gets a chance to screen the prospective jurors to make sure that they feel that that juror will be fair and impartial to them, make sure there's no connections or whatever that would result in possible bias. Well, they did all that for this trial, and they got underway on Monday afternoon with what they call opening statements.
Okay.
This is the trial of Stephen A. Kaiser, age 38, of Franklin Grange Road, Jackson. We've talked about this on the news. We've certainly written about it a lot on the newspaper. We had stories on the radio. I think that Jeremiah talked about it a little bit yesterday as one of the developing news stories. That is a shot that I took in the courtroom just as Mr. Kaiser was entering the courtroom, escorted, of course, by a corrections officer. There are multiple corrections officers, sheriff in the room as well. You notice that Mr. Kaiser is wearing a bulletproof vest. This is not just an unusual thing. This is typical. It's to protect the defendant in a potentially violent situation where emotions are running high, of course. And Mr. Kaiser is accused of the murder of his estranged wife, Tara Kaiser. That happened back in October, and he has multiple charges against him. The most serious of which is murder. And there was a plea agreement that was presented to him where if he pled guilty to certain charges, it would be 76 years to life. Well, of course, when you're 38 years old, that's a life sentence probably, yes, right? So he didn't take any deal. They couldn't work out a deal, and so they are in trial. That is our prosecuting attorney in Jackson County, Randy Dupree. You can see just behind him, sitting at the bench, is the Honorable Judge himself, Christopher Reagan. Yep. But yesterday, both attorneys, and the defense attorney is Jeffrey Blosser from Chillicothe. He is representing Mr. Kaiser. This is scheduled for 3 days. It will almost certainly go into the third day. It potentially could go beyond that. We're talking about a dozen or so prosecution witnesses. Defense, it's yet to be determined. But Jeffrey Blosser, the attorney for Mr. Kaiser, one of the things he said in his pretty brief opening statement was that Mr. Kaiser has the right not to testify. He wanted to make that point, that doesn't make him guilty because he doesn't testify, but he does not have to.
Sure.
He didn't say he wouldn't, but he said he doesn't have to, and you should not read anything into the fact that he doesn't testify. But what Prosecutor Dupree did, he did a pretty extensive review / preview of the evidence that would be presented. He reviewed, the episode that happened. The two were still married but separated. They did spend apparently part of the day together. Something happened later in that day to where she apparently was fleeing from him, her in her car, he on a motorcycle. This was on 4 Mile Road, not too far from Jackson. He allegedly fired shots, one of which went into the car. I guess 3 shots went into the car. One did hit Tara Kaiser. She wrecked the car. She died later at Holzer Medical Center, Jackson Hospital. Mr. Dupree pointed out, because there was a wreck involved too, he pointed out that the autopsy stated or concluded that death was due to a single gunshot wound to the head.
Not because of the accident.
Right. 5 charges for felonious assault. This does not have to do with Mrs. Kaiser. It has to do with shots fired at law enforcement officers. And, they tried to make the point, Mr. Dupree did, that law enforcement officers could tell that, the shots were being fired, just not by Mr. Kaiser as a warning or whatever, not all of them anyway, but some of them were directed at law enforcement officers. Now, nobody was shot or anything like that. So I guess the bottom line is Mr. Dupree is going to present all this evidence that shows what happened. There's body cam, there's photos. There are some witnesses that were nearby when this occurred. Of course, law enforcement came after, Mrs. Kaiser wrecked. The defense did not give a lot of indication what they might say. They just said that Mr. Kaiser doesn't have to testify. And Mr. Blosser said, listen to all the testimony, all the evidence, and then you decide what is a just verdict. One of the possibilities might be a claim that Mr. Kaiser may have fired the gun towards the car, but not in an attempt to actually hit Mrs. Kaiser, although she was hit at least once.
Let me ask you this. Are cases like this, are they open to the public, or do you have to
They most certainly are. They most certainly are. Yesterday when I was there for part of the trial, they had, and this is why, there's a lot of security in the courtroom. There was defendant's family there, and there was victim's family there. So, that is a recipe for possible tension for sure.
Absolutely.
So no incidents. While I was there, Judge Reagan, cautioned everybody on that. He also cautioned that there would be graphic evidence presented, if that would be a problem. He didn't want, that was a warning for any younger people, children that were in the room, and also to prevent ahead of time any emotional outbursts in the, because they're upset by what they see. So that trial, once again, should go into Wednesday, maybe through Wednesday. Then, of course, the jury will have a decision to make.
Okay.
All right. The other thing we want to talk about, that we've got to talk about, is the Starbucks coffee shop.
Yes.
Starbucks coffee shop proposes to come to Jackson at 984 East Main Street. That is property just to the west of the McCarty Crossing shopping center. If you go down that little access road there, and McCarty Crossing, you turn to the right. Well, Starbucks would be on the left. And this is not McCarty Crossing property. This is property sold that was still owned by the Jackson CIC, the Jackson County Community Improvement Corporation, and they sold it to a development company who has been working with Starbucks. The development company will be upfront, doing all the preparation, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And then they will lease it to Starbucks. Now, we had an issue surface, though, at a meeting last night.
Okay.
Starbucks, or in this case, the development company, which has represented them, had to get what is called a conditional use approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals. The property there is zoned for business. That's not a problem.
Right.
But the way the zoning code reads now, I think this will probably change when they change the zoning, which they're about ready to do, modernize it. Whenever you have a drive-through, that used to be a new thing. You've got to have a conditional use saying it's okay to have a drive-through. Well, Starbucks, like everybody, all other
course.
modern chains, wants a drive-through. I don't think there's a problem with that. None of the members of the Board of Zoning Appeals had any problem last night at this meeting. However, a couple members of the Board of Zoning Appeals and Jackson Mayor Randy Evans oppose the proposed building plan of the development company to have the Starbucks coffee shop facing away, the front facing away from Main Street. So, when you drive
I can
in,
see that.
it's because there wasn't a detailed explanation, but it has to do with the lot. It has to do with the fact that the development company has to work around an easement that the McCarty Crossing people has, and they thought, or Mr. Decker, who represents the development company, I talked to him on the phone, and also he came to the meeting. He said there is no way that we can build this without the building facing away from the street.
So the building would face the access road, not the street.
No, it would face actually, the back of the building would face Main Street, and the front of the building would face, the other side towards where, the Meridian plant used to be and like that.
Okay, that's weird.
It's not going to face the access road. It's,
It's going to be completely backwards?
yeah, back front, as you go down that
I don't
access
know
road.
about that. That's
Okay.
weird.
Well, Randy Evans pointed out that he says, we don't have any other buildings that don't face that, and he doesn't think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
He and a couple of the zoning board members, everybody wants Starbucks to come, but why can't you just flip it?
Yeah.
But the development company says that it won't work in their minds. It has to do with the lot. It has to do with that easement they have to work around. It has to do with the parking and where the drive-through traffic is going to be. And they don't see a problem with that. And the city people who oppose it don't see why it can't be the other way.
Why it can't be turned around.
So this was very awkward. This meeting was at 6:30. The council meeting was at 7. So 7 o'clock comes, and it's time for the council meeting. So they have to stop the discussion, and it hadn't been resolved.
Okay.
So I think that there's strong feelings. I think everybody wants it to happen. An investment has already been made. Work has already been done. There is excitement about, a new national brand coffee shop coming to Jackson. So they're going to meet again next Monday evening at 6 o'clock. This will be the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a city body. It has 2 city councilmen on it, as well as 3 community members. And, city officials were there as well. But Mayor Randy Evans and at least 2 zoning board members. And one of the zoning board members said they felt like at least 4 zoning board members feel that it should be flipped. I think that the development company, this is my read now, I think the development company was surprised that the city officials felt that way and were surprised. I think the city officials were surprised that it was a big deal.
That they didn't understand why we could turn
That was
it
a big
around.
deal,
Yeah.
why it just can't be flipped.
Huh.
So there you go. I'm not a development person. I'm not a city person. I'm not a...
Aren't you glad we're not in the middle of this,
Right.
other than just talking about it?
So anyway, nobody drew a line in the sand and said this way or the highway, but it was not resolved at the time that they left. So we will see what happens. Once again, this is not a city administration decision right now. This is a zoning board decision on whether to grant the conditional use. Granting the conditional use is basically just leverage right now because they'll give them a conditional use through a drive-through, but they don't want to obviously have a restaurant without a drive-through, and so there you are. I had no idea that
The bargaining
I had no
term.
idea that this was going to happen.
Interesting.
I had already started on a story to the newspaper after talking to Mr. Decker about them coming, and then I figured, rubber stamp at the meeting, but you might get more information.
Well, my gosh, boy, did you have a busy day. Murder trials and Starbucks. And
Right. And we do have a lot. There's a lot of meetings that are
My
being
gosh.
covered because of the first of the year. They get rescheduled near towards January 1st. But we have school board meetings. We have council meetings this week. Oak Hill Chamber meeting for the first time. They've got some big projects. And Vinton County School Board, we got all sorts of things. So if we come in here, if I come in here huffing and puffing, and you hear the staff huffing and puffing, and when you walk by, there's a good reason for it. We're trying to keep up with all this stuff.
Because you're going at a full sprint. We get it.
Some Starbucks.
Yeah, you'll need some coffee for sure.
Need some kind of juice for sure.
All right. Well, Pete, thank you so much for filling us in. I know that was a busy day for you,
Right.
and a lot of stuff to report on. So, and of course, don't forget, you can pick up your copy of the Telegram here, or you can subscribe, which would be great. That way you can get that physical paper and or the digital copy as well.
Exactly right. And, these stories that we're talking about, have been or will be in the paper in more detail.
You got it.
So there you go.
There you go. All right. Well, we will be back tomorrow with, I think, our friend John, who is the director of the new Rio Grande Band. And we'll find out what they're up to. And also, I think some friends from Zip Printing might be stopping by as well. So,
Okay.
as well as news. So, have a great day, everyone. Stay warm. And we'll see you right back here in the morning. Bye-bye.
Bye.